Welcome everybody, and thanks for spending 1 hour with us. What we're here to do today is talk about the topic on Education 4.0. And if you don't know what Education 4.0 is, you can look it up. It's actually, I hope you will know in a few minutes from now. And it's the way that we teach at Middlesex University in order to be aligned to Industrial Revolution 4.0. And believe it or not, yes, we had already 3 previous versions of an Industrial Revolution, and we are the 4th at the moment. I'm Professor George Dafoulas. I'm a professor of Information Systems and Business Computing, and I'm the Director of Programs in Computer Science. So I teach in the program a lot, and it's great pleasure that I have with me, of course, apart from Catherine, who's actually running the show. So if you just arrived, Catherine is the person who's going to allow you to speak. So just raise your hand if you want to interrupt at any point. But we have Dr. Harjinder Rahanu with us, and he's an esteemed, highly esteemed colleague who is teaching in systems analysis and design, but also foundations of informatics. So he's teaching in year 1 and year 2. Harjinder, would you like to say a couple of words for yourself before I continue?
Yes, thank you very much, George. Yes, a very warm welcome to everyone. And as I said, please do feel free to ask any questions that you have. George, thank you for the introduction. As I said, I primarily teach in the first and the second year of the undergraduate programs. As I said, I teach the informatics module in the first year, and then systems analysis and design module in the second year. I also teach on the postgraduate level as well. And as I said, today's session, as George has already alluded to, is really an opportunity for you to find out from us how we will teach this module and how we deliver, how we teach this program, how we deliver this program to you. It's very, very interactive. It's very, very hands-on. And as I said, do take this opportunity to ask any questions that you want to. I promise you, we will not bite your heads off. Please do ask. Thank you, George.
And we're a very international university. We have more than 100 nationalities in the campus. Our program is truly unique in terms of how many people from different countries coming in to join each other in London, learning new cool stuff. So I'm going to start with a brief video that explains Education 4.0, and then after a few minutes, I will continue with my slides.
I remember the teacher talked and we listened. We had to memorize quite a lot too. A lot of time was spent giving out books and collecting them up again. We were sitting in rows and desks so we could see the board better because talk and chalk was the way.
There must be an industrial revolution in education, in which educational science and the ingenuity of educational technology combine to modernize the grossly inefficient, clumsy procedures of conventional education. Sydney L. Pressey, 1924.
These young people are studying in a new way. A computing calculator designed for use in high school classrooms has created tremendous excitement among educators.
The tool which has made this possible is the high-speed digital computer operating with electronic precision on great quantities of information.
If we think about the 3rd industrial revolution, that was PCs and the internet, and we've just about caught up with that. The 4th industrial revolution is what becomes possible from those technologies.
Industry 4.0 is the next big shift in the way that manufacturing operates. Digital know-how is going to be hugely important, and then people will need to be flexible because the world will change.
The future workplace and future societies, we're still moulding them as we go, and technology is one of the main pillars in what is shaping what the future will look like.
The pace of change is remarkable, with the introduction of these exponential technologies creating a paradigm shift to create Education 4.0.
Lectures aren't fit for purpose anymore. Using textbooks and teaching in a Victorian sort of method with rows of students and listening to the teacher taking notes, it's obsolete. We need to use our time in lessons to actually have those meaningful mentoring one-to-ones that can never be replaced. The technology gives us that time if we use it correctly.
Rather than being something that's scary, we can use technology to be something that's very liberating for people. So instead of having to go through the rigmarole of institutional learning as it's been in the past. We can actually use smart robotics, smart computers to make learning more accessible to more people and to actually tailor it to individual needs.
This whole cluster of AI technologies will make learning for students more rewarding, teaching for academics more rewarding. We want it to be a win for everybody.
We've shown already in clinical studies and trials that retention is up to 70% higher in virtual reality. That has a huge impact on learning and retention of facts.
The challenge is for universities to really develop their students' digital skills so that they can actually make use of those skills in the workplace.
It would be all too easy to say everyone must learn to code. But the truth is, coding is just one digital skill.
Creativity, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, these skills that can never be automated, that can never be replaced, are what we need to focus on.
Education 4.0 is a request to the education sector to rethink the educational paradigm. And it's an opportunity for us as this fourth industrial revolution kicks off to think about what modern education should look like.
We now live in a hyper-connected world. And now, the time, more than ever, the time is for us to say, what do we want to do with that? So what I'm going to do now, we're going to try to define what Education 4.0 is, because this is not the future anymore, it's in the present. We're in the present. Education 4.0 is here. And what I have is like, I have quite a few cases to show you and how it relates to your future jobs, if you like. So let's try to define Education 4.0. As I mentioned before, Education 4.0 relates to Industrial Revolution 4.0. So Industrial Revolution 4.0 is what actually happened with the revolution in the manufacturing industry. Technological developments that have actually changed the way that we develop stuff, the way that we experience the world around us. So you probably have heard already about artificial intelligence and how its applications change the world. Advanced automation like self-driven cars, robotics, smart robots, 3D printing. I don't know how many of you have actually heard or actually have experienced 4D printing, which is actually the current trend is no longer 3D printing, but 4D printing. And if you want, you can ask questions about 4D printing and explain more. Big data, Internet of Things. So these are all words that come into play when you're thinking of the future. And one of the main things that you need to understand is that how will your education equip you with the skills that will help you to get your first job, but then remain employable for in the long run, throughout a fruitful career. So basically, the Industrial Revolution 4.0 relates to the fact that we have a tighter integration of digital and physical elements. In other words, computers with equipment, circuits with materials, and everything, literally everything, is becoming interconnected. And human presence is not necessarily important. It sounds bleak, a bleak future without human presence. It's not. It doesn't mean that humans will become obsolete. We are the center of our own existence, if you like. So we always design technology in order to assist us, not to replace us. So the future means that humans will focus more on activities and tasks which require logic, which requires the human mind to operate, rather than mundane tasks, rather than manual tasks. Equipment will change manual tasks. This is an illustration of how we shifted from Industry 1.0 on the 18th century. 18th century, it was the steam power that changed the way that actually transportation, mechanical production, and so on took place. Industry 2.0, it was all about electricity and how it helped mass production. Of course, the introduction of assembly line. Industry 3.0 was all about digitization and computers. And now what we have is we are in the era of Industry 4.0. 4.0, which is about, as I mentioned before, big data, IoT, Internet of Things, AI,
and so on. So it's very interesting era to live in, because actually it helps us to understand what we can do with technology. I know I've said it several times, guys, feel free to interrupt me. I really want to have this exchange. If you don't want to interrupt me, put something on the Q&A section and Catherine will ask the question for you. So if you don't want to say anything, if you're shy, you can always type it and Catherine can actually ask the question for you. So Industry 4.0, it has actually 9 main elements, and the 9 different technologies range from autonomous robots to big data and data analytics and augmented reality, but actually you may have the industry of the industrial Internet of Things, cybersecurity, the use of the cloud. Probably most of you are using probably Microsoft Office 365, or maybe you use online data storage facilities and so on. So that's what Industrial Revolution 4.0 is, to connect data with equipment in order for you to be able to do wonderful stuff with technology. There is a huge impact with Industrial Revolution 4.0. So far, we have experienced a lot of jobs being replaced in European countries with jobs in other parts of the world where the wages are lower. So basically, this is known as outsourcing or offshoring and so on. But actually, what we have now is the concept of reshoring. So what reshoring is when jobs are coming back. And it is expected that actually that AI and robotics may take 800 million jobs by 2030 in the world, which means that China and India might be hit hardest, losing all these millions of jobs. And the reason is that the cost of preparing a piece of furniture by using a 3D printer will be cheaper to have it in the US rather than the equivalent Kenyan wages in 2033, which means that companies that are back in the US, that companies in the UK will think of reshoring some jobs. So why do we need Education 4.0? We need Education 4.0. We need it because we need to educate students in a way that will help them to get the skills, but most importantly, the frame of mind that is suitable for a work environment in IR 4.0. So this is the important. So basically, I can see a question, but this is about the English test. We can, if you don't mind, we can answer questions about entry criteria towards the end. So if you have any questions about the things that we talk, at the moment, it would be great. All the entry requirements and so on, we will cover towards the end. So it is very important for your education to have practical approach. We're a university for skills. So in every program, we're trying to create a learner who is able to get the first job and be really successful. So in other words, for example, in business information systems, one of the things that we do a lot is to train you of how to do data analytics in business settings. Because we want people who are in between information technology and business. So we teach you how to design systems. Harjinder does that. We teach you how to manage IT projects. I do that. And we, with the skills of designing systems, and we work with databases like what Joanna is doing. And with these skills, then the next thing that we do is like we help you to solve problems for specific case studies for businesses. And it is a personalized education. I will show you what I mean by personalized education. So Education 4.0, it is all about immersing yourselves into a learning environment. And actually we have changed a lot in the past half a year or so, because everybody has moved in e-learning. And actually e-learning is one of my research areas. And it's been a huge transition for everybody to shift their learning approach into an e-learning format. We have so many different ways of creating personalized dashboards, different learning paths, personal learning paths through e-learning. The key concepts of Education 4.0, and which is that what we do at Middlesex, is personalized learning. So first is personalized learning and diversity of learning. In other words, learning has to be personalized and customized to your needs, and then diversity of learning in terms of finding out, getting knowledge in so many different ways. Education 1.0, it was back on the days when people were doing what I'm doing right now. So basically, I'm just telling you stuff and you just listen. Education 2.0, it was based on Web 2. And basically, it was all about creating wikis, blogs, social media, and so on. Education 3 was everything was dispersed. So you were actually getting information from various sources and you were constructing, let's say, a portfolio. Education 4 is what we're doing, and I'm going to show you later on, but this is just a table of how education works. Also, we have to consider the student role. If I'll tell you something and you're not certain, it will take only a couple of seconds for you to Google something, or you want to check something. So it's very important for you to understand that long gone the days where a professor would talk to you and they would give you all the information and then you would just stay back and listen. Everything is a little bit more active and interactive. This is an example, some pictures here from an example of MIT and their project about how to have a scale-up approach in order to have a big number of students and how they can actually have layouts that is not in the old-fashioned way. And actually, most of our lecture rooms have been replaced. We have old-fashioned big lecture rooms, but we have a lot of active learning classrooms, which I will show you later on. Okay, let me show you this slide. 20% of people are addicted to the internet at the moment, which is really scary. And as a matter of fact, I think that probably we're going with higher percentages. 90% of children and adults play video games. So everybody wants, when they deal with technology, they have associated this with the use of games. Only 28% of people aged from 10 to 34 engage in literary reading. We were hoping to have higher percentages than that. And of course, people are very bored when we have traditional lectures of what I do right now. So this is boring, and I know it's boring. The last one is what I really like the most. It says about the time, it's not the memory, but it's attention span. So apparently millennials, they have a shorter attention span compared to goldfish. A goldfish can actually stay focused for 12 seconds, while the students of the present and the near future, they can only focus for 8 seconds. That's scary, Harjinder, isn't it? That means that if I don't grab your attention, 8 seconds and you're gone. I lost you in the class. Okay. Let me tell you about the top skills that you need before I go into something more entertaining. I hope you can see. This is your top 10 skills in 2020, guys. There's nowhere coding, nowhere. There's nowhere systems analysis and design. Hard skills are almost non-existent. Why is that? Because the skills that we need is problem solving for complex problems, creativity and critical thinking, managing people, being able to coordinate projects, emotional intelligence, knowing when to say what to say, judgment that is important for negotiation, decision making, focus on services and ability to be flexible in the way that on your cognitive the cognitive flexibility to show in terms of your personality. So these are top 10 skills. And it is important for us to integrate these skills into the way that we teach students. So I had enough with my boring slides. Now I'm going to show you some examples of what we do in the class. And feel free to ask questions about what I'm showing you. And then Harjinder is going to say a few things. And then I'm going to show you something with my mobile phones and so on. So the first one is about augmented reality. These are my students. And they wear the Google Glass, the first version of Google Glass. And actually, what they do is they use augmented reality in order to learn. So when you wear the Google Glass, you can wear it above your reading glasses. And what you can actually see is what you see over here. So if you see the right photograph on the photograph on the right shows you the guidelines of the tasks that I give to my students. And actually the students can take a picture of their computer screen or their software or whatever they have created, and they can send me a message with this picture and they can ask a question. Or when you wear the glass, somebody can actually call you on your mobile phone and you can talk to them. So that's an example of augmented reality for students doing the work. And this is a good example of showing how augmented reality is used for your learning. So I have used it with my students in year 1 and year 3. By the time they graduate, if they go to an industry where they use augmented reality, they have already the experience. And this is also used with business school students. So it doesn't have to be only people who are doing multimedia or IT who get experience like this. This is an example of how we take pictures of the Google Glass while students are doing presentations, and I put a small piece of feedback for their style, if they have good content or bad content, or also the style, if they have good and bad posture. And that feedback is given to the students in order to find out what they're doing, whether they're doing it good or bad. And that can be given to staff members as well. This is an example of another member of staff giving me feedback on the way that I give feedback. So it's very interesting. It's feedback on feedback using augmented reality. I think we've gone too far with this one. We have an application where students can go online and they can vote on my teaching style while I do it. So by the way, we don't have this for all the sessions. This is just showing you it helps with the students to experience immediate feedback. So if you'll see on the left, I'm doing the lecture, I'm wearing the glass, and on the right, what do we have is like on the right side of the slide, interest, the percentage, 38% of people were only interested in what I was saying. If you see on the left, I have a graph, on the right, I have a list of topics. So I could actually see the percentage in front of me while I was teaching, so I could adjust my style.
We had a quick question, actually, George. Yeah. Someone's asked if you wear prescription glasses, would you also still be able to use the Google glasses?
There she is. And actually, this is why I included that picture to show you that actually you can wear them above. Yeah, because actually what you'll see is there is a small crystal there which you can adjust. It's amazing. It's so easy. I wear it above my glasses, so you know, like I have these and I have the Google Glass on top. It's very interesting because Google Glass stopped using the glass a few years ago. We kept using the glass at the university doing research, and now Google went back a couple of years ago. They came back with the second version, the enterprise version of the Google Glass, and we are one of the few universities that actually maintained loyalty to the Google Glass, because I think that we will see more devices like this in the next few years, because the technology now is ready and there's more receptivity, you know, people are more receptive in terms of how this can be used. I have 4 slides here to show you different things. This is about student profiling. I mean, we have our students using some surveys. They don't have to do all of that, but when they do, we get a profile for them. So the students learn about their personality type, or the Belbin style is about how your role in a group. For example, are you a team worker or you are a shaper who wants to everything to, like a shaper is a typical alpha male leader, if you like. It's either my way or the highway. Or a team worker who focuses on people working efficiently together. MBTI is about the 16 different types of personality based on the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And by having this, we can actually see how our students behave, and we can, if you like, by knowing my students' profile, I can adjust the way that I teach them. This is another survey we use, which is the way that people manage their work into teams, whether they are producers or integrators. In other words, do they focus on the task or do they focus on the people? And this one is the VARC style, so it shows whether you prefer to look at stuff or listen to stuff, or actually write stuff or play with your hands in order to learn better. And by doing that, we can customize the way that we teach. This is another example of what we do. We do a lot of simulations. This is the Scrum meeting. It happens in software development when people meet together and discuss what they've done the day before in terms of developing further. And this is an example of how we had some students from Germany and Egypt, students from Palestine and Egypt, and we were in Germany. And the Middlesex team was teaching all these people, and we were working virtually. And so basically every day we would have a meeting like this, and then people would go to their hotels, and they would use messaging services like WhatsApp to communicate with each other and exchange files. And this is what's all about, data analytics and data collection. And this here, the big screen, it shows the number of messages people exchanged every day. So here, there were no messages till that day. You know what that day was? That was the interim deadline. So group B did not exchange any information till the deadline. Then they realized that how much work they had to do. And in the second week, they actually were far better than everybody else because they realized the importance of communication. Or for example, here in that screen to the bottom right, you can actually see the nodes at the bottom are individuals. And the lines show all the activities that they have been involved in. So by that, we can see that the first node, they have only participated in one activity, while the 7th node here got involved in almost everything. So by doing this, you can actually see who's the best student. We use a lot of social media, Facebook that we're replacing with Twitter and LinkedIn, but we use a lot of social media in our teaching. So students can actually play with, have simulations, they can see, I mean, this is a cloud of, this is a visualization of communications between my students a few years back, and that shows how people communicate by tweeting and retweeting certain information. So you see that's visualization. This is our goal platform. Actually, this is the previous version of it, the shop platform, where we have a, if you like, a visualization of where every student is. So every yellow bar, it's one student. So what you can do is like, you can actually see how much work you've done compared to the rest of the class. So imagine that this is my entire class. These are on the top left, you can see the tasks you have to do. And once you complete them, they're being observed. And then what you have is like, you are one of the yellow bars, and then it shows your progress. Biometrics, it's one of my favorite subjects. Unfortunately, due to COVID, I'm not in the lab to play with it. This is one of our labs where these are two labs that we use. And we have created a smart learning environment. Those of you who are playing with Xbox, probably you will recognize Kinect, which is in the middle on the tripod. And we have two Kinects there, collecting information about whoever is talking and whoever is moving. So these are some of my students here on top left. And what they do is like, if you'll see, they're holding some cables, and we monitor their vital statistics through the cables. If you'll see this laptop here, it picks up through Kinect who's talking the most. So you can find out who's talking the most in a presentation or a meeting. We have all these laptops because we monitor your emotion. So we can actually detect your emotion during the meeting or during the presentation, and we can see how stressed you are and the 6 basic emotions. If you see here, we have a device which is sensors collecting your heartbeat and your sweat levels, and that shows how stressed you are when you present information or when you have in a meeting and so on. So we've been doing all this wonderful stuff, and it's really amazing because you can actually play with it, creating this, or just using it. And the beauty of BIS is like in business information system, we just use it to collect the data and help a manager to find out who's the best person, who talks the most, or who's not contributing, or who's very stressed. And with that, you make decisions in a team, in an organization. So here's just another case, team working with the previous version or a presentation. We do video recording. We do a lot of video tagging as well. So one of the things that we just developed this year, we give in our students video tags. So what we do is like we give them the video with the tags of what they did good or what they did bad in a presentation. And these are some examples of additional learning analytics. So these tell us which personalities show more engagement or surprise and so on. So for example, raising an eyebrow or attention is highest for these students. So you see, these are the 16 personality types. So by knowing your personality type, I can forecast whether you will pay attention or not in my class. So I can actually identify who are going to be the students who I need to focus more on. Classroom Without Borders. This is an example of how I used one of my projects for Middlesex University students. That was ages ago, but we still have the project, but we have the old logo there, where our students work with guys from Texas, Panama, and Turkey. And this is important because they communicated and they exchanged ideas, and it was like cultural differences at their best. So you see here, these are the students doing video conferencing together to discuss. This is yet another example of what we do, virtual world, Second Life, and we use it to teach our students. In some cases, we do experiments. I remember a few years back, I asked my students once a month not to come in to stay at home and just log on to Second Life. I had to take special permission. Right now, it would be the norm. Most of the students don't come in anyway. And these are some of the screenshots of my students with me. Actually, I was teaching my lab session remotely, and everybody had their avatar, and we could move around and play. That was an amazing time. Harjinder, I'm almost finished. Active learning classrooms. These are some examples. This is not Middlesex. I just grabbed several because by the time I was putting these in, I was not in the campus. But we have quite similar structures throughout. This is a power wall. We have a couple of power walls in the campus. What is an active learning classroom? Exactly what you see there. Most of our labs, they're like this. You do not just look at the screen. It's like you are in teams, you work. In my class, quite a lot of times, I'm asking you to take notes. It looks like what you see in front of you because it's all about discussion and making decisions and so on. So it's no longer just somebody in front of you teaching you stuff. This is an example of how everything is focused towards the workspace, okay? So digital evidence module, I used to teach it. These are my students pretending to be police officers who came into an internet cafe, and we used a member of staff to pretend to be the digital criminals. And what they did is like, these are some samples of the work that they did. So they had to take pictures, they had to go online and gather information and so on. They would create a portfolio, and then they would pretend that they were actually a company. And this is KPMG. And this is us going at KPMG, where the students presented their work at KPMG. And as a matter of fact, the KPMG senior managers decided which was the best team, and they would give a contract. So it was a really, really, really role-playing kind of realistic environment, which was really amazing. So with that, I will finish. I will stop here. I will demonstrate something and I will finish with a very brief demonstration, actually, as a matter of fact. So what I will do is like, I want to show you how we transform our learning and how we change everything. So what I will do is like, if you give me 1 second, I will remove my lovely Greek island background, and you can see my actual boring room, but I need to show you this. And basically, if you can see, this is a QR code. And actually, this is an application that we have where you can actually scan the QR code. And if you scan the QR code, after a few seconds, what you will see, and I will show you the phone in a minute, basically what this does, it gives you this option. So basically you can choose which module you're doing. And actually this is an application that all my students use this year. So you can actually choose which week you're studying. And then by selecting these options, you can actually see the parts of the slides that you need to download for your coursework. So I'm trying to see if we can actually show that. Okay, can you see it now?
That looks better, yeah.
Brilliant. So basically, three times you push the button, and basically what you do is you can actually, by pressing 3 buttons, you can immediately go and find out which part of the slides is relevant to your coursework or to your presentation or anything. So practically, I'm using technology, which this is augmented reality, because you can use it on your mobile phone. Just if you print it, you can go on top of your text, and you can do the QR code. You can do it on the slides. So you have somebody giving you support 24/7. So I don't even need to be there to help you out. And with that, I will conclude. I'm leaving my email there as a background. Harjinder, do you want to say a couple of things? Do we have any questions?
Yeah, George, would you like me to just say a couple of quick things to Adriana, Akim, Aman, Isaac, Mushfiq, Samuel, and Yusuf, just to pick up on points that George made. I teach on the Business Information Systems program, and one of the beautiful things about the program is that we're bringing 2 worlds together. There's the world of business, and then there's the world of information systems, IT, and applications. And what we fundamentally attempt to do over the 3 years is to see how businesses can actually deploy and exploit these technologies in order to give them an advantage, to give them a competitive advantage. And I think that's the absolute beauty about this module. So it's not one where we're so simply just trying to sort of technically define what information systems are or what information technology is, but in fact actually having a look at information systems and information technology from the perspective of how businesses, as I said, can very importantly deploy and exploit these. Now, I do a second year module, and on that second year module, we actually have a look at how we can design these information systems, design these technologies, these applications. And one of the approaches that we take is to use a very much a case study approach, where we take real life business case scenarios. And based on these real life business case scenarios, we design information systems. And that's important that we design not from, it's important that we design from that perspective, from the perspective of what's actually happening out there in real life, using these real life business experiences. Apologies for that. Also very, very importantly, when it comes to actually designing information systems, and again, that's something that we will, as I said, look at in the all important, in this second year module. There are key skills that we're trying to engender in you. Key skills such as problem solving, creativity. A lot of the work that you will do, not just on my second year and in fact the first year module that I take, but I think this is true across all modules, is that a lot of it does involve group coursework. And at the end of the day, when you're working in groups, it does require the management of people, management of your peers. And so that again is a wonderful experience that you get. And there's a lot of skills that you develop within yourselves in order to know how to manage other people. In fact, actually, I was looking at the list of 10 skills, and I don't know whether I missed it or not, but was information literacy on there, George? Because
no.
Yeah, this is something that Simon and I, in fact, actually push very much in the first year. On that first year module that you will have, we in fact actually try to engender in you and make you become information literate. And what that means is that you have the skills to be able to access information, to be able to retrieve information, to use information, to evaluate information, and to ultimately present information. And I think that again is a very, very important skill that we try to engender in you, not just in the first year, but across the 3 years. But as I said, I think what you really do need to get an appreciation for is that across the 3 years and across the 10 odd modules that you do complete in order to, the 10 modules that constitute what the degree is, what's important is that you never ever lose sight of that fact, that it's these two worlds coming together. It's not just solely looking at information systems and IT, but looking at how, very, very importantly, information systems, IT, applications can in fact actually be designed, developed, deployed, and importantly exploited by businesses in order to give businesses that competitive edge. And I think that would put you in a very, very, very strong position in the marketplace, that you have an appreciation not just of one world, but of these two worlds and how these two worlds come together. Thank you, George.
You're very welcome, Harjinder. Guys, you can ask me any kind of question. Just unfortunately, the Redmi who asked the question is no longer present for the Duolingo. The Duolingo test for 2020, we would accept 90. We would accept 95 overall score. However, if you go to the English requirements under Middlesex University, it says this is just for 2020. So you need to get in touch with admissions in order to confirm whether that's going to be the case for the September start or for this January, if you're about to join us in January for the BIS program. Any other questions, guys?
I would just add to that, our admissions team is online 5 days a week on our live chat. So if you guys do have questions like that, if you have a different accreditation that you want to know if it switches over, our admissions team is quite flexible. So they're always willing to talk to you about different entry requirements, etc. So I do recommend you guys reach out.
Yes, and of course this is mostly like an admission question rather than. Okay, good. Any other questions, guys? You can type or you can ask to talk. Just raise your hand, and we would be happy to hear your voice.
I actually have a question while we wait for some to come in. That was a really fascinating presentation. I was just wondering, considering that we're obviously living in COVID times, do you think that going forward, these digital skills will become even more important, but particularly these ideas around creativity and innovation, these skills that they've listed here, because companies are focusing so much more on technology? And how long do we kind of see that transformation happening for?
Actually, as a matter of fact, in the US, it has happened years ago. At Middlesex, I think we're doing quite well in terms of we have quite a lot of state-of-the-art professors doing crazy stuff. So I think that it's not a trend anymore; it's a necessity. So with COVID, we have shifted towards e-learning and virtual work. I tend to use famous people's words as well because it grabs attentions of people. I mean, who am I? I'm just a silly professor from a university in England. Although you start saying things that Bill Gates said, everybody's going to, oh yeah, what did Bill Gates say? So one of the most recent, if you like, because Bill Gates is now becoming a futurologist, so he's just predicting the future now. He predicted things with the pandemic. Then the next thing that he predicted was about that we will manage to get over it with vaccination in next year, 2022. And then one of the latest, if you like, predictions is that we're going to see estate agents losing their jobs because increasingly there will be less and less companies working in huge offices in the city centers, and more people will move to the countryside because commuting would be required only a couple of days a week because people might be working from home the majority of the week, which means that people will leave their city center apartments and go to the outskirts where they can get the same price, a couple of bedrooms more, and one of them can be a study or an online space for online collaboration. So we're definitely going to see a different way of work and a different way of education, and this is what we do at Middlesex. So basically, with all the stuff that we're doing, and I saw today, we're moving to a completely different way of delivering knowledge and educational programs. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I'm a strong advocate of completely reshaping education, but I think at the moment I'm probably one of the lone voices, not only at Middlesex, but everywhere in the world. I do not believe in the education on the way that we have it now. It could be that students become able, in 10 years from now, students may not just come to study one program. They may just come to study a couple of courses and they study from home something else, get a course from IBM, one from Microsoft, one from Cisco, come to Middlesex for half a year, then learn something by traveling the world and so on. So I think that we need all universities to change the way that we see education. And I think as a university, we're being quite proactive in changing the way we do things. There is a question about teaching coding and where it stands in IT on the future. I have to say that we have a wide range of topics. Both Harjinder and I were from the information systems point of view here. We of course have the computer science program where it's all about coding. So both Harjinder and I, we believe that we want to design systems rather than just spend our time in front of code a lot. Although my first degree was in programming, so I spent my life looking at Pascal, COBOL, C, and Java. And I have to say that as a person, I prefer to see something else rather than watching, just going through 2,000 lines of COBOL code and debug it. One of the most important hard skills is coding. Coding will change in the way that it will be more using tools in order to design systems and design algorithms. So it's very important to have a balance between understanding key concepts like data structures, algorithm creation, design, system design, and not just getting a piece of code created with a tool. Keep in mind that we have an industrial board that gives us a lot of information about what the industry wants. For example, I have a lot of friends in places like IBM, and we are constantly in discussions because we want to find out what the industry wants. And frankly speaking, what you will learn here is the foundation in order for you to become a good learner. Either you are a designer, if you do BIS, or if you are an analyst, or if you are a coder, if you do computer science. In both cases, be prepared that you will go out there and in the first job, you will learn so many things in the first 2 or 3 months, because that's what businesses do. Saying that, with InfoLab, it's one of the businesses that we do a lot of work in business information systems. So when we are in campus, they come in and they do free training for our students on data analytics. So, and we have a lot of placements with them. So in other words, we have industrial links that helps us to work a lot with placements and internships in order for you to be prepared to get for your first job. So that was answered, Catherine. Isaac, are we also covering data structures and storing this data? Okay. By data structures, I do not mean hard disks. Data structures is the concept of how you collect, how you deal with data in a system. Okay, let me explain something. You have different data, like you consider the data that are numbers. So you have a different data structure when you're dealing with a number. You have a different data structure, data type when you're dealing with a number, a different data type when you're dealing with a piece of text, a string of characters. And then with data structures, we're thinking about how are you dealing with data? Let's consider that you're asking me questions, okay? Who was the first guy that asked me a question? Let me go back. Okay, so the first question was Redmi, and then it was, before Isaac, I cannot remember the previous person. But now we have one more question, Aman. So first in, first out. Aman was, so Isaac was first, so I answered the question first. So first in was Isaac, first out is Isaac. Or it could be first in, last out, so I could go first to Aman. So basically these are the concepts, like you have queues, you have stacks and so on. So this is when we're talking about data structures. So before, I'm very fascinated with that part of IT, because when I was a student ages ago, back in 1994 in Manchester, I remember that we were not really, although we had computers, we were not really supposed to touch computers and do a lot of programming unless we understood the basics. In other words, we were meant to learn how to speak before we start trying to speak. So it's a very interesting approach. Anyway, Aman, could you please tell me what is people management skills? Okay, people management skills is, I'm notoriously grumpy. I'm a lovely guy, but can be grumpy when there is a lot of work around and so on. So people management skills, on the other hand, Harjinder, it's a lovely, peaceful guy. Seriously, if you'll see Harjinder, he's so calm. It's like, you know, like it's like a flat line when, you know, like when we have a meeting and so on. Now, what actually happens is that, let's assume that we have the two of us at the same time in the same room. People management skills is like to know when to coordinate all of us in order to have a good meeting. I talk a lot, Harjinder not, he can talk a lot, but not as much as I do. So people management is communicate with us, dealing with the different personalities. So imagine that you're an IT manager. This is what the beauty of business information systems is. You're an IT manager, and then you have a very strong-minded client, and then you have a very strong-minded designer, and you are in the middle, and you need to talk to the client to get the requirements, and then you need to talk to the designer, and they say, look, I know that the customer wants something crazy. Can you do it or not without offending the client in the next meeting? So that's people management skills. How to trigger the passion of someone, how to help people stay committed. These are people management skills. So I hope I answered your question. We have time for more questions, for a couple of more questions if you want. We have a couple of more minutes. We can accept a couple of more questions if you want. While I'm waiting possibly for another question, what I want you to, what I would like to do is, like, I wanted to tell you that it is very important for you to, you know, like if you have any questions, let us know. I mean, we're happy to talk to all of you. You can talk to admissions, you can talk to our team. I'm going back to my email. So you can actually see my email address here. So feel free to send me an email if you have any questions about the Business Information Systems program. watch this space for more online sessions. I'm doing quite a lot of webinars similar to this, and quite a few members of staff. And we would be more than happy to talk to you about how Hendon looks like, how's the undergraduate programs. If you want to start in January, it's just around the corner, so I don't know how many of you are January starters. If you want to start in September, you still have time to get ready and experience the Hendon campus. So Catherine, I think this is it unless you have anything else to say.
No, thank you so much, George and Harjinder, for that amazing presentation. And I think I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did as well. I'm obviously not a computer scientist, so this is quite informative for me. I just wanted to remind everyone that do keep an eye on your emails for any future events. We will have an experience days for those of you who've already applied in February, as well as an open day for anyone who's still waiting to apply a little bit later in the cycle in February as well. So please do join us at those two events. We'd love to talk to you again. And like George said, keep an eye out for any more webinars that we might be running in the next few months. But yeah, thank you all for coming. And thank you guys again for that amazing presentation.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.